So I'm Natalie Owens-Pike. I am the outgoing Executive Director of LearningWorks, and I am also a Blake alum and a LearningWorks Teaching Fellow alum. And I got engaged with LearningWorks when I was just a college student, and LearningWorks was the place where I discovered that I wanted to be a teacher. I really caught the teaching bug here in this program, and loved the way that we are able to show students that it's cool to be smart, it's cool to be you, and it's cool to care. And that motto has carried us through our 20 summers, and shines through in this unprecedented one where we are gathering virtually as a community. So thank you for gathering virtually with us today. We're so excited to welcome you, to be able to introduce to you our incoming Executive Director, Tricia Crossman, who has been working with us this whole summer. And for you to hear from some amazing voices in our community of our supporters and folks who make LearningWorks possible. So I will turn it over to Dr. Ann Stavney, Blake's head of school, whose support of LearningWorks makes our work possible in so many ways, to share a little bit about how our summer is going and her support of LearningWorks. So thank you, Ann.
Good morning, and I want to echo Natalie's welcome to our first ever LearningWorks Virtual Visitors Day. And though we wish we all could be in the hallways of LearningWorks this morning, hearing the sights, seeing the sights, hearing the sounds, I feel confident that the wonderful panel of LearningWorks leaders that we have this morning will communicate that same excitement and enthusiasm for the program. Whether you're a LearningWorks family, you're a Blake alum, you're a parent of a Blake student, or a supporter in the Minneapolis community, we're really glad you're here this morning and really look forward to having the panel address your wonderful questions that you submitted through the RSVP. Though this summer has been different for all of us in a number of ways, we really gather hope from the LearningWorks students and the aspiring teachers whose positive energy, their investment beyond barriers, their enthusiasm has brought LearningWorks to life, and that's been even online. So this morning we invite you to hear the aha moments from our LearningWorks community. That's part of what we've asked them to share this morning. And this has been made possible even through distance learning. In this summer, when the inequities have been laid bare across the Minneapolis communities, LearningWorks has continued in, as Natalie mentioned, our 20th year to bring together students in the classrooms and to forge meaningful relationships across lines of school segregation, across race, across ethnicity, across social class, across language. We're incredibly proud of the 121 students who showed up an average of 83% of the time this summer online, and really demonstrated that LearningWorks is a place where it's cool to be smart, it's cool to be you, and it's cool to care. We really want to thank our donor community and also emergency grant funding from Otto Bremer that made it possible for our students to continue to learn this summer in math, in science, in literature, in social studies, and also to engage in some really fun activities and electives that include origami, computer science coding, and embroidery. So we're looking forward to hearing today from our faculty and mentor teachers about what they're seeing happening at LearningWorks this summer. So thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ann, for sharing a little bit about what this summer has looked like and the student experience, and for grounding us in our work with our students and teaching fellows this summer. As Anne shared, much has changed for our students and for LearningWorks this summer in response to all that our teaching fellows and students are facing in our community, whether that's that the hardest impacts of this pandemic are hitting communities of color and low-income communities, or the anti-Black racism and police killings of our Black neighbors that are happening very close to home for our students. And especially all that our students are carrying as they learn from home. Some of them as older siblings, some of them supporting family members. We strive to still carve out space for them to be kids and to feel joy and to develop their leadership with us at LearningWorks. And it was precisely our students' resilience and their continuing to show up in spaces above and beyond all of those barriers that led us to choose our summer theme this year. So each year we choose a summer theme that's a 6-word acronym that guides our work for this year. And in this 20th year of LearningWorks, our theme is Rise Up. And we have seen our students this summer rise up to our expectations, rise up to their own leadership, rise up with their creativity and their resilience to show faculty and staff what is possible in this community. So our students are doing that in their math and science classes. They're doing that in hosted lunch groups where they gather on Zoom to connect with each other over lunch and a discussion topic, where they introduce their pets to each other on the Zoom screen, or have a discussion about which teaching fellow's inner weird they can guess. So we are so grateful that we are able to put together this community so that our students can thrive and experience the joy and the power of LearningWorks. So thank you all for being here to hear a little bit more about it. Our students are learning on Zoom, so you're experiencing a small taste of what it's like for them this summer. As I mentioned, while some of you were arriving, our students and our faculty at this moment are experiencing our virtual all-school meeting. So we are still hosting that daily enthusiasm and positivity and opportunity for shout outs and recognition of student leadership. And our wonderful all-school meeting cast of actors has been putting together this hilarious and musical and silly skit for us every morning. So we feel really grateful that this really special portion of our day, our students still get to experience every day. So students do have a shortened day that they're experiencing. They chose 2 of the 4 academic classes, and they still have an elective class as well. But we have worked to limit their screen time so that they are not on Zoom all day. Though I will say that our teaching fellows and our staff definitely have a longer day than our students. So we are feeling the Zoom fatigue 4 weeks in right now. Getting some nods from Addison and Patty, who lead 3 hours of class with their leadership students this summer. So I am going to turn it over to our panel to be able to share a little bit about who they are and what they are bringing into this space. So as an opening question, we're going to ask everyone on the panel to just tell us a little bit about your journey with LearningWorks. So start with your name and your pronouns and your role at LW, and then where you are in school. But talk about your connection to LW and how you got started on your journey here. So I'll pass it over to Addison first.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Like Natalie just said, my name is Addison, and I use she, her pronouns. This will be my 3rd summer working with LearningWorks, 4th year, if you count my school year program experience as well. I got connected to LearningWorks because I'm a Blake alumna, which is very weird to say. I don't think I've said that out loud ever, so that's fun. But I started with the school year program and then started the summer program. The last 2 years, I taught math, and this summer I am returning as the leadership teacher for the rising 9th grade students, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I've just always loved being a part of this LearningWorks community. I am the lead for ASM, so I still love getting to do that online. Currently, I am a rising sophomore at Knox College. And yeah, I just am really happy to be a part of this panel. So thank you for having me.
Turn it over to Patty next, and then Nan.
Hi, so yeah, my name's Patty. I got involved with LearningWorks. I did the program when I was in middle school. And so I've had a lot of connections with Natalie throughout high school. We emailed back and forth, but it was like sort of like a bad game of tag because I would always email like too late to apply or just like too soon and then forget about it. But I finally got it. And now I'm back as a teacher, which is awesome. But this is my third summer teaching. My first summer, I was an intern for the science department, and then I was an English teacher, and now, along with Addison, I'm teaching leadership, which is awesome. And the last part, I am about to be a junior at Winona State, which is also fun. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nan Nguyen. I use she, her, hers. Where I am in school, I've actually graduated. I graduated from McAllister in 2017 and from Brown in 2018. And I was actually a LearningWorks teaching fellow for 2014 and 2016. So in 2014, I taught math, and 2016, I taught social studies. So I found out about LearningWorks in college and has been able to be connected with the program. And right now I am the Leadership Academy mentor. So I get to be with Addison and Patty for this whole summer, and it's been really an honor to be able to work with them.
Awesome. And our final panelist, Elias, is also here. Elizabeth, if you can add him as a panelist, and then he can introduce, or they can introduce themselves. Thank you. Yay, Elias, thank you for running ASM and then hurrying over here to connect with us on this panel. So Patty and Addison and Nan just introduced themselves and shared about their connection to LW. So you can also do your own introduction and share your connection and your role at LW this summer.
Hello, my name is Elias.
Elias, can you speak up just a little bit? It's hard to hear you.
Yep.
That's much
Hello.
better, thank you.
Hello, my name is Elias, and I was a student at LearningWorks from 2014 through 2016, and I loved it very much. It was very I think integral to my middle school experience, and it gave me a really great community. And I think it never really occurred to me that I just wouldn't come back as a teacher. So as soon as I could apply in what year was it? 2018? Yeah, 2018. I signed up. I became the math department intern, and I interned for 2 summers, and now I am a full-time literature teaching fellow this summer, and obviously it looks very different than I was anticipating, but nevertheless, I'm very, very, very excited to be here, and yeah.
Thank you, Elias. So this question is for Patty to kick off, but other folks can feel free to chime in if they want to answer it. The question is, what have you learned or gained from being a part of the LearningWorks community, whether as a teaching fellow or a student? And how does that show up in the virtual summer?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of things, especially as a student. I think it was a lot of interpersonal skills of how to essentially just make and have friends, because I used to be a really quiet student, and LearningWorks definitely, I don't know, it could be argued either for the better or for the worse, but I definitely became a lot louder and a lot more confident in myself when I was at LearningWorks. And I met one of my best friends to this day at LearningWorks. We're still we're sisters at this point, which is awesome. And I definitely wouldn't have had that relationship without LearningWorks. So I definitely think it was a lot more social skills when you're a student. And then coming back as a teacher, it's been a lot of like just business, or not like business skills, but sort of just like how to carry yourself in a work environment. A lot of like just like how to sound professional and like how to have those like tough conversations with coworkers when they're either not like picking up their end of the work, or if they like sort of if they like maybe said something to a student or sort of handle the situation in a way that you didn't agree with. There's definitely been a lot of support from staff and helping me have those conversations myself, rather than just going to them and being like, they did something wrong, help me. And so it's really nice that there's that support there to help you sort of solve your own problems, but not just being like, just go do it on your own.
Nan, Elias, or Addison, feel free to chime in on that question as well.
Yeah, I can chime in. I think that for me, as only experiencing like the teacher side of things, LearningWorks has really helped me learn what I'm interested in studying in school. I'm still not decided in my major or anything like that, but I have a strong interest in education after working for this program. So I think that that is something that is a common experience, or even for other teaching fellows who think they have an interest in education, who then come to work for LearningWorks and get to experience the love that all of our students bring, really makes you like really be like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I think that is something that I've definitely gained from LearningWorks.
Thank you, Addison.
Yeah, so I learned that hard work pays off, which I think is very important. I think as a student, I'm not even gonna lie, I wanted to quit like during my second week, just because it was so much like what's the word, social like overload. I wasn't fully aware of like how to engage in that community properly, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna push through it, I'm gonna see what happens. And I think that's kind of what I've always learned every time I come back to LDUB, is that the more that you really only get what you give. So when it comes to students, I feel the same way. It's that I always know that the classes that I prepare for the most are the ones that go the best. So it's really just making sure that I always need to be putting in 100% effort if I want to get, anywhere, you know, and reach my full potential. So yeah, that's what I learned.
Thank you all. Addison, I'll ask you to kick off this question and other folks can chime in. What would you want to share to the person in our audience today who doesn't know that much about LearningWorks and what we do? What should they know?
Yeah, I think that for me, one of the things about LearningWorks that kind of encapsulates what it is our use of norms and that language that we use with students and for ourselves. We talk about, it's cool to be smart, cool to be you, cool to care, all of that, and also like calling our own lines, making sure we're not overstepping bounds and things like that. And when I think of LearningWorks, I do think of those norms and how the students really just understand and accept them from day one, and create this space that is so welcoming and a learning environment for everybody. I mean, going back to the norms of like students teaching students, I think that for me, that is a big one of like, I learn so much from my students every single day. I hope they're learning from me. That is the goal. But yeah, I just think when I think of LearningWorks, I think of how like strong of a community. I think of the love I have for my students, and I know that all of the teaching fellows feel really connected to their class and advisory. And this summer it is feeling a little bit harder to connect to people that aren't in those spaces that you're in commonly. But in a regular summer, just getting to know students from like, I personally am a big fan of karaoke at lunchtime, so that's how I would create some bonds with other students. But I think just that community and the fact that we all accept these common norms is really what makes LearningWorks what it is.
Thank you, Addison. Other folks want to chime in on anything that we should share with someone who's not as familiar with what LearningWorks does?
It's a full experience is what I'd say. Like, it's not just a you know, I'm trying to think of like the best phrasing. It's not purely educational, nor is it re nor is it, rehabilitative. It's like for all students, regardless of their skill level or of their background. It's making sure it's about creating a community. So I think a huge part of it is social emotional learning. I think that's a huge part of it. And also it's about, you know, beyond just relationship building and getting ready for the next school year, it's also just giving students supports and resources that they'll need for the rest of their lives. So obviously, um, you know, I'm I'm very proud to be an LW alumni, and I'm very proud to be an LW teacher, just because it's so much a part of who I am. It's more than just like a program that students go to and then forget about, or just do for one summer. It's something that's like a continual part of their lives, and we really work to make sure that it's a really positive experience for every one of our students.
Thank you. Nan, could you talk a little bit about the mentor teacher system and support for teaching fellows, and maybe how that's shifted in the remote setting?
Yeah, so it's actually my first year being a mentor teacher, and especially for leadership. So it was, and it's virtual, so it's a very different experience. I just remember my experience being mentored by math mentor and the social studies mentor, who has really shaped why I wanted to become a teacher. So that mentorship relationship is really important, and it's an important aspect of the learning work experience as well. For virtually, it's been harder to, I guess, like create a community, but of course, like with LearningWorks, like Elias said, community building is one of the most important things, and I think that's something that we prioritize in the Leadership Academy space within ourselves as TF and mentors, but also with excuse me, and also with leadership teachers and their students. And you can see that when you go and observe their classes, is that the norms are there, just the way that students respond to their teacher are really ones of, like, you can tell that they have put in so much effort to build those relationships and those trusts between them. And for mentorship, in terms of myself and TF, we've been able to communicate a lot more. And I think that communication is really important in this work. And so Addison, Patty, Brendan, the other Leadership Academy teacher, they communicate what they need with me, and if they need any resources online. So we try to make it work as much as we can, but all of that is also attributed to the relationship that we were able to build way before that, and something that we prioritize in our space. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nan. Yeah, the mentor-teacher relationship and system is so integral to what we do at LearningWorks, and really grateful to hear your perspective about it today, too. Thank you. So many of you just in your last question responses mentioned some of our LearningWorks norms, some by name and some just by system and how we use them. So I'm wondering if each of you could share a norm that LearningWorks uses to guide our community. And so share a norm you want to give to the audience today and what it means to you.
Yeah, I can go. I think one of the norms that I always think about is challenge by choice, because I think it gives the students sort of that they're able to realize that like we do want them to do these things, like we want them to step outside of their comfort zone, but it gives them that space to be like, that's just too overwhelming for me, and knowing that at any point they can opt out, and without us without us grilling them and being like, well, this is something you have to do, like this is why you do it. And I also think since it is one of our norms, I think students are a lot more willing to then step outside of their comfort zone because they have that knowledge that at any point they can back out. And I think it really helps a lot of the students become like really empowered in themselves.
Yeah, I can continue. I think the norm, I don't know why, as this is not a norm I usually think of first, but the first norm that came to my mind was respectful champion. That's one that we commonly just kind of use more in our Foursquare settings in person when someone's in the lead, be a respectful champion, like competitive settings. But I think for some reason this summer I've been thinking a lot more about what else respectful champion can mean, and just I think when, at least in leadership discussions with our class, kind of making sure the idea of taking space and making space, which is definitely also related to calling your own lines, but being a respectful champion in the fact that you have important things to say and you should share them because they are empowered to know that their voice is important, but also being respectful of the fact that that doesn't mean that you need to be the only one sharing, and it's not just you in this space, and we have to make sure that everyone feels respected. So I just think that this summer, for some reason, I've been thinking about all the various meanings of all of our norms, and I think that they can be applied in so many ways, which is part of the greatness of them.
A norm that really stood out to me is it's cool to care, and I think that's a norm that's really grounded in the collective value of the community, and that's what LearningWorks also based itself on. And I think it's important for students, especially younger students, to understand and know that it's really cool to care for themselves and for each other. And as a middle school teacher myself, I think it's really hard for students to understand and embrace that norm. But at LearningWorks, we were able to really embrace the norm of caring for one another, not just on the knowledge level, but that's a humanizing methodology and method, and a really humanizing norm for the collective as a whole.
Yeah, and I think cool to be you is really we need a huge part of our mission is just acknowledging students are in middle school, and that's just a very hard time for them to just be dealing with life. So a huge part of what we do is saying it's cool to be you. Education can be a celebration of who you are. We do support you, and really making sure that they know that this space is there for them and that they're seen, and that we all want to see them succeed, and we want to see them share who they are with us, all of it. So that's what I'd say. Cool to be you.
Thank you all. Cool to be you is one of my favorite norms too, because you get to see it evolve for students over time, just like you said, Elias, that they show different facets of themselves as they grow in their comfort and in feeling seen at LearningWorks. Thank you all for sharing those. I have a question for everyone again to chime in. I want to know, what is a memorable experience or interaction or situation that you've seen at LearningWorks, either with you and a student, or non with one of your teachers you're mentoring, or in your experience as a teaching fellow as well?
Yeah. For me, the memory that I have is less of a one specific experience, but the memory of seeing a certain student throughout the years that I've been here. For me, teaching leadership this year, the students started in the summer the same year that like I started teaching at LearningWorks for summer programming, which is really nice because I've seen all of them evolve through that. But specifically, one of my advisees I've had a really close connection with, and now last summer I was able to teach her as a math student, and this summer I'm able to teach her in leadership. And seeing the connection that we had before I was like in a teacher role with her, just my first summer was great, but then getting to see her as a student and now in this more like discussion writing based sort of class, which is very different than math, it's so amazing for me to see like how the like complexity of this one student, and I see this with all of my students, but the fact that I've seen her in so many different spaces, it like every time I think about it, it kind of makes me a little emotional. Like I just feel like I have such a strong connection specifically with my advisory, because I think that's a really good aspect of LearningWorks, but getting to see the full rounded person and student has been an amazing experience.
I think similar to Addison, I actually had an experience connected to LearningWorks, but happened outside of LearningWorks, is that I saw one of my advisory at like a restaurant, and just seeing her after, because I had her since 2014. So she was a first year. And then she went and become an intern and is working for SYP, the school year program. And just seeing her all graduated from high school was just a moment where it was just seeing her grow from the first year until her senior year of high school was really pivotal, and just spoke to kind of the relationship that we are able to build just through advisory and through LearningWorks programming in general as well.
Thank you. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to move on to our next question. So thank you both for sharing those experiences of the spectrum of seeing LearningWorks students grow and evolve. So two last questions. One, Addison, as a Blake alumna, who, as you shared, you've been involved for years with LearningWorks. Can you share any insights about how being part of the program at LearningWorks has impacted you or your peers at Blake?
Yes. So I think about, well, Blake is the reason that I'm connected to LearningWorks, so that will always be something that I'm thankful for. Walking on the third floor of Blake, being like, what are these offices? What's this about? Kind of was like, and getting to connect with some of the staff at that time within LearningWorks and Blake was really great for me. I think I do wish that the Blake community as a whole had a better understanding of what LearningWorks is. I think that sometimes there is the divide of the teachers, the students at Blake who like partner with it during SYP and then maybe join for the summer as well, and other students who don't actually know that much of the partnership that Blake and LearningWorks has. I think that it would honestly be very beneficial to maybe have some discussion in the larger Blake community. We have so many wonderful videos of LearningWorks and what the summers look like, and I think it would be really great to share that with Blake. For me, a lot of my friends were also involved with SYP just because of the crowd that I hung out with. But I think that for all of my friends and I who participated within it, we were really happy with the connections and things we were making. And I really think that sometimes Blake can feel like a bubble, 100%. Like you're just with the same students, especially that so many of these people have started since pre-K and just been with the same group, that the connections and opportunities to go outside of that are really crucial. And I think that more people should be aware of that partnership and be aware of the like benefits that it can bring them as well as all of these students.
Thank you, Addison, for sharing that. Nan, this last question is for you before I turn it over to Trisha to greet us. As you know, one of LW's goals is to recruit and prepare teachers, and especially to increase teachers of color in Minnesota, and to train teachers to be, all teachers to be culturally responsive. So can you share a little bit of your reflection of, as a mentor teacher and as a teacher of color yourself, how LearningWorks is doing at achieving that goal?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie. So for myself, actually, I think representation is really important within the education field. And LearningWorks is one of the few and the first places where I actually saw a lot of faces of teachers of color and mentors of color. And my own social studies mentor and math mentor were teachers of color. And I think that plays a really important role in me choosing to become a teacher myself as well. So I think that LearningWorks is very representative of the city of Minneapolis in terms of the population and demographic. And for culturally responsive training, LearningWorks also provided a lot of culturally responsive training as younger teachers when I was not yet in like a teacher preparation program. And I think something that is important is that LearningWorks provided me with a lot of background knowledge that I was able to come into my teaching program with that are more culturally responsive. So it prepares me to be able to really advocate for what really cultural responsive is and culturally relevant curriculum is. And especially with the fact that we are able to create our own content with what we're passionate about as teachers, and also as a mentor, following guidelines and state guidelines that really helped as a teacher of color going into these different preparation programs and into licensure to understand and know that it is possible to make something relevant, culturally relevant, and also follow state standard at the same time. So I think LearningWorks is doing a great job of that. And just looking at the teaching fellows group this year, I also see a lot of different diverse backgrounds and identities, and really embracing those backgrounds and identities. And really explicitly also talking about the inequities and the racial inequities within the teaching field as well. And I think that's something that's really important that LearningWorks does, is it doesn't shy away from those conversations and those really difficult conversations on racial inequities within the teaching field and just in the world in general. So I think that has really, LearningWorks does a really good job of that, and also actively and intentionally recruiting more teachers of color and mentors of color into the space as well, and really uplifting their voices to just be able to share their experience.
Thank you, Nan. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing your leadership with our leadership teachers this summer. I am so excited to turn it over to Trisha Crossman at this moment to have her share a little bit about what she's bringing to the LearningWorks community as the incoming executive director and what she's seen this summer. So welcome, Trisha.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you, panelists. That was wonderful. If we were in person, we'd be clapping right now. So in LearningWorks tradition, we do spirit fingers. It was first, I was like, what are they doing when I first got here? But it's a way to celebrate and recognize the great things our young people and teaching fellows are doing. So nice to kind of connect with everyone virtually. I'm really excited about this day. I have had this pretty remarkable luxury of having a 2-month overlap in my time here with Natalie as she's exiting out. So, you know, which is such an indication of Blake's commitment to this program, that they would do what is often unheard of, right? And allow 2 executive directors to have this 2 month of time to connect and talk, and for me to soak up all of the learning from past years and get to know faculty and staff and some students. It's a little bit of a weird time to be doing that, to come in during what 2020 is and has been for us and our communities. My background is as a social worker and in youth development. So one of the things that I believe has been so wonderful to see in this community is, one, the sense of community. And you've heard that mentioned a couple different times today. But in my career, whole child perspective, which is not just looking at education, not just looking at family, not just looking at health or mental health, but really looking at the whole person in the context of their family and community and world, is a big part of my background. And to come here and to see these teachers and future teachers who are being trained on that perspective is really refreshing. And it was a wonderful opportunity to very quickly reinforce that I came to the right place. I grew up here in Minneapolis, but left basically when I was 18 and have been gone a pretty long time. And it was really when the Kids Count data came out, showing that Minnesota was the last state in the country around educational inequity. It shocked me, it upset me, and it was really the impetus to say, oh, I want to come home and be a part of making my city and state better. And when this opportunity came up with LearningWorks, it was, kind of planets aligning for me. And being here over these last 2 months have reinforced that the work that is happening here is remarkable and not common, like really not common. And, as always, we have things we want to work on and get better at, but this is such a special community and special work that's taking place. And, one of the things that was also very exciting to me was that the focus was, yes, on students and their academic engagement, but also about recruiting and training teachers of color and white teachers in culturally responsive models, which is aligned to evidence-based practices and what moves the needle on educational equity. So because it had this multi-layered focus, it just was such an exciting opportunity to engage and get involved. So I'm very excited to work with you all. I have learned so much from Natalie about the whole community, that's necessary for this to be what it is. Our teaching fellows, our mentor teachers from Minneapolis Public Schools, our students from Minneapolis Public Schools, our Blake community and supporters and donors, all are necessary for this to be what it is. And so I want to thank everyone for being in those roles, and I'm really excited to work with you moving forward. Thank you so much. And I think with that, I'm going to pass it back to Anne.
Thank you so much to all of our LearningWorks families who have joined us this morning, our Blake alumni, our Blake parents, our partners at Minneapolis Public Schools, and our community supporters who have joined us for this really exciting, tremendously exciting and inspirational panel this morning. It is support from all of you that makes this program possible, and especially your support through the challenges of this summer. We look ahead as LearningWorks, the team starts to design the school year program that will commence this fall, our 20th school year program. So exciting to celebrate that as well. I also really want to thank the LearningWorks faculty and alumni who shared during our panel today. I'm always inspired by hearing their aha moments, moments that were really meaningful to them during the program. And I know that LearningWorks works very hard to support these brilliant young people in the teaching profession and inspiring them to continue to teach and make an impact on the next generation. Patty started off by mentioning elements of the LearningWorks program that were really meaningful to her, and I heard themes throughout the panelist conversation this morning that really echoed those elements of developing self-confidence, developing interpersonal skills, and also developing relationships that are enduring and affirming and deeply meaningful. So we are proud to bid farewell to Natalie, who is on to her next adventure at Yale. And we are so thrilled to welcome Tricia as she takes the helm of LearningWorks. We wish all of you the best with the rest of your summer, and we hope you can connect with LearningWorks again soon. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. So we're a little past time, so if you need to leave, that's totally fine. But as Tricia has offered in the chat, we'd be happy to stay on and answer questions that have been raised in the chat as well. And our panelists, if you need to head back to teaching class and observing class, you can certainly do that as well. Thank you for being here. Were there questions that you saw in the chat, Tricia, that you wanted to address?
Well, I realized after that you had started to answer some of those. So, you know, it might be good for the whole audience to respond to Sabina's question about partnerships, other partnerships beyond Blake and Minneapolis public schools.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say the main partnership that we have outside of Minneapolis Public Schools and Blake is our partnership in the National Breakthrough Collaborative. So we are one of 24 different sites across the country, including our neighbors across the river in St. Paul at Breakthrough Twin Cities, who share in this collective mission to end educational inequity in the U.S. So we get to come together and collaborate as a full group of those fellow staff members. This was incredibly essential to us as we spent just 2 months developing and launching a fully remote program this summer. So we had 24 other program directors and executive directors that we could lean on as we were developing what our program was going to look like this summer. We also do some collective impact assessment of how we are reaching our goals together, and look at best practices as a full group so that we can make sure that we're doing and building the best programming we can for our students. We also have partnerships at sort of the older age of the spectrum for our students. So we have required programming for our 7th and 8th graders. And then once our students move into 9th through 12th grade, we offer support to them, but it is not required. So we have our 9th grade leadership academy. And then we also have workshops for our 9th through 12th grade students that focus on preparing them for the college application process. So through those workshops, we have developed partnerships with College Possible, for our 9th through 12th graders, and with several local colleges and universities whose admissions folks come in to share their expertise with our students. But we know that this work does not happen in a vacuum, and we cannot do it alone. So certainly, Sabina, we would be happy to follow up with you about other partnerships that you might know of that could connect to this work. Yes. Great question. So there's a question from Don about how does the typical Blake student understand the mission of LearningWorks? I wish that Addison was here still so she could answer this. And I would say I think that has evolved significantly over the 20 years. The way that we engage with Blake students has also really changed. So in the last few years even, we have moved from engaging about 10 to 12 Blake students each year in our volunteer teacher program to closer to 40 students. So there are about 35 students this year that will be engaged as volunteers in our school year program as teachers in the program. And I would say that that creates a totally different level of word of mouth and engagement with what our mission looks like in action. I would say most Blake students know that LearningWorks is a partnership with the school once they get to the upper school. So 9th through 12th graders are much more aware of it than our students in the middle or lower schools, which is something that Trisha and I have been talking this summer about how to change that. I would say the typical student probably would identify this program as a way that Blake is supporting Minneapolis public school students. And what we are trying to move that towards is that that it's a much more of a mutual engagement, that our teaching students motto really comes through, and that our LearningWorks students are experts in their own experience as well.
I guess Shanti had a question about what have you seen start at LearningWorks that you hold as a success, and what do you see in the future? Can I give my couple cents before you give the bigger picture?
Please.
Shanti, thank you so much for that question. One thing that I have seen just in my 2 months at LearningWorks, and this comes from working with young people my whole career, and doing some technical support in working with schools around the country, that what I've seen at LearningWorks is really a not only the academic, pretty rigorous work for middle schoolers, but also the support and enrichment that makes young people want to come back even when they're struggling in a class, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're in a school environment and you've experienced a lot of struggle or failure, it's hard to show up every day. And the depth of wraparound and the training of teaching fellows in those youth development concepts that are so important to build community is a natural part of this program. And I can't say enough how wonderful it is. When it comes to future, and Natalie and I have talked a lot about this, really one of them is the majority of our programming ends after this leadership year for rising ninth graders. But with goals around college access and college completion, the ability to grow the program and build the resources to have a much more robust high school and early college experience is a perfect next step.
Yes, I know we have some parents of some current ninth grade Leadership Academy students on this call who are also thinking about that for their student. What does engagement look like after that ninth grade year? And you heard Elias and Patty both talk a little bit about, once they became sophomores, there are volunteer and paid internship opportunities for students. But there are a lot of students for whom being in front of the class or pursuing a teaching role doesn't fit. And so we want to offer more opportunities for them to still be a part of a community where they really came to know themselves as leaders and got to exercise that leadership in a lot of meaningful ways, so they can continue doing that through their high school years. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. So I want to echo again our gratitude for your time this morning and for being here with us in this inaugural Zoom Visitors Day. And we are so grateful that you are a part of our community and that you're here engaging to connect with us this summer and see what's different and new. So thank you for being here.